Have you ever felt it? That overwhelming wave of feeling that seems to rise from nowhere? A force of nature inside you that others don't seem to understand? Have you ever been told you're being too sensitive, too emotional, that you take things too personally? Have you ever looked in the mirror after a moment of intense feeling, be it joy, sorrow, or anger, and wondered, why do I feel things so deeply? Is there something wrong with me? That question, whispered in the quiet moments of self-doubt, is a heavy one to carry. It can make you feel isolated, misunderstood, and flawed. But what if that question is based on a misunderstanding? What if the very thing you've been taught to see as a weakness is, in fact, a different kind of strength, a different way of experiencing the world? Your emotional world is like a vast, powerful river. For some, this river is wide and slow-moving, its currents predictable. But for many women, this river is different. It has powerful, deep undercurrents. Its tides rise and fall with the moon, and it is exquisitely sensitive to the surrounding weather. Society has often stood at the banks of this river, pointing and calling it unpredictable, chaotic, too much. We are taught to build dams, to divert its flow, to hide its power, for fear it might overflow its banks. We've spent our lives trying to tame this river, without ever being taught how to navigate it. We have been taught to fear its depths, instead of learning the wisdom they hold. For the next 25 minutes, we are going to journey down this river together. This is not a video to be passively watched while you scroll. This is an invitation to become an explorer of your own inner landscape. We will chart its course, understand its currents, and learn to read its weather. If you are ready to stop fighting the river and start navigating it, to truly understand the beautiful complexity of why you feel the way you do, then consider hitting subscribe, not as a click for a channel, but as a pledge to yourself. A promise that you are ready to begin this journey of profound self-discovery. We will complete this journey together. Let us begin by stepping into the water. Feel its temperature. Notice its movement. The first thing we must understand is the riverbed itself, the ancient, unseen geology that shapes the water's path. This is the biological foundation of our emotional experience. Neuroscience, through the incredible lens of brain imaging, shows us something fascinating. It's not that women have more emotions than men, but that their brains are often wired to process them differently. Deep within your brain lies a small, almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Think of it as the river's most sensitive sensor, the sentinel that first detects an emotional disturbance in the water. Research consistently shows that in the female brain, this sentinel is often more reactive, especially to social and emotional cues. It registers the subtle shift in a friend's tone, the fleeting disappointment in a partner's eyes, with greater initial intensity. This isn't a flaw. It's a feature of a highly attuned nervous system. The initial signal is simply louder, more vivid, demanding attention. I want you to try something with me. Right now, close your eyes for just a moment if you can. Recall a time recently when a small thing felt disproportionately large. Perhaps a short, clipped text message that sent a spiral of anxiety through you, or a moment of praise that brought an unexpected surge of tears to your eyes. Can you locate that memory? Don't judge it. Just observe it. That feeling wasn't you overreacting. That was your sentinel, your amygdala, doing its job with exquisite precision, ringing a bell that was designed to be heard. The work of the great psychiatrist Bessel van der Kolk teaches us that the body keeps the score. Your emotional responses are not just abstract thoughts. They are physical, biological events. That jolt, that ache, that warmth, it is real. And for many women, the volume on that biological reality is turned up just a little bit higher. And it's not just the sentinel, it's the regulator, too. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain right behind your forehead, acts like a skilled navigator trying to steer the ship through the emotional currents the amygdala has detected. Studies reveal that women often engage more of this brain region when managing emotions, suggesting a more complex, effortful cognitive process is underway. It's like navigating a more complex stretch of the river, requiring more hands on deck, more careful calculation to guide the vessel safely. So, when you feel exhausted after a difficult conversation or a day of managing the feelings of those around you, understand that your brain has been engaged in a highly demanding, neurologically expensive task. You haven't been dramatic. You've been working. Now, let's consider the tides of our river. Tides are not random. They are a powerful, cyclical force governed by celestial bodies. In the female body, this force is the hormonal system. The ebb and flow of estrogen and progesterone across the menstrual cycle are not just a biological footnote. They are profound modulators of our emotional landscape. Estrogen, in its rising phase, is like a warm current, boosting serotonin, our brain's natural mood lifter. This is the follicular phase, a time when the river often runs clear and smooth, when you might feel more resilient, more optimistic. But as the tide turns and these hormones recede in the luteal phase, leading up to menstruation, the currents can become choppy. The very same event that you might have shrugged off 2 weeks earlier can now feel like an insurmountable obstacle. This isn't a failure of character. It is a predictable, biological tide. Understanding this rhythm is not an excuse, but a form of profound self-awareness. It's learning to read your own inner almanac, to know when to sail with the current and when to drop anchor and wait for the storm to pass. And then there is oxytocin, often called the love hormone, but it's so much more. It's the hormone of connection, of bonding. When under stress, the male body is often flooded with cortisol, priming it for fight or flight. While women experience this too, their stress response is also uniquely buffered by a rush of oxytocin. This doesn't prime them to fight or flee, but to tend and befriend. It creates a deep, biological urge to connect, to seek support, to talk things through, to gather the tribe. This is the river naturally seeking other tributaries, knowing there is strength in connection. So when you feel the overwhelming need to call a friend, to share your burden, you are answering one of the most ancient and wise calls of your biology. It is the river's instinct for survival. Many people hear this biological information and think, so that's it? I'm just a slave to my brain and my hormones? I have no control? This is a profound and dangerous misunderstanding. Acknowledging the riverbed and the tides is not about surrendering to them. It is the first step in becoming a master navigator. A sailor doesn't blame the sea for its storms. She learns to read the sky, to respect the currents, and to skillfully handle her vessel. Your biology is not your destiny. It is your landscape. And understanding your landscape is the only way to journey through it with wisdom and grace. It's the difference between being tossed about by the waves and learning how to surf them. Now, let's look at the quality of the water itself. How it reflects light. How it carries sound. How one ripple can spread across its entire surface. This is the realm of psychology, of how we perceive and interact with the emotional world. Research points to a phenomenon known as higher emotional sensitivity. This isn't about being fragile. It's about being able to detect more subtle emotional information. Imagine two people looking at a painting. One sees the primary colors, red, blue, yellow. The other sees crimson, cerulean, and ochre. The second person isn't making things up. Their perception is simply more granular, more nuanced. Studies have shown that women, on average, are better at identifying emotions from subtle facial cues or in ambiguous situations. Where a man might see a neutral face, a woman might detect a flicker of concern or a shadow of sadness. This is a form of intelligence, a high-resolution perception of the social world. Think about it. In your own life, how often have you been the one to notice that something is off in a room, even when everyone is smiling? How often have you sensed a friend's unspoken distress? This is your emotional perception operating at a high resolution. It can be a burden because you see and feel the static, the unspoken tensions that others miss. But it is also a profound gift. It is the root of empathy. This leads us to the work of researcher Simon Baron-Cohen, who proposed the empathizing systemizing theory. While a vast oversimplification to apply to all individuals, it offers a useful framework. It suggests a spectrum where, on average, the female brain is more tuned toward empathizing, the drive to understand another's thoughts and feelings and respond with an appropriate emotion. The male brain, on average, may lean more toward systemizing, the drive to analyze and build systems based on rules. Neither is better than the other. They are simply different cognitive styles, two different ways of making sense of the world. An empathizing mind is a mind that is porous, open, and deeply connected to the social ecosystem. This porousness also makes women more susceptible to what psychologists call emotional contagion. This is the tendency to catch the emotions of those around you. You walk into a room where someone is anxious, and you suddenly feel a knot in your own stomach. Your friend is ecstatic about good news, and you feel a genuine surge of joy as if it were your own. This happens through our mirror neuron system, the parts of our brain that fire not only when we perform an action, but when we see someone else perform it. Research suggests women often show stronger activity in this system. You are, in a very real neurological sense, mirroring the emotional state of others. This is the biological basis for deep empathy. It allows for incredible connection and caregiving. But it also presents a challenge. If you are constantly absorbing the emotional states of others, how do you know which feelings are yours? Let's pause here. Take a slow, deep breath, in through your nose and out through your mouth. As you sit with this idea of emotional contagion, I want you to ask yourself a gentle question. In the last week, whose emotions have you been carrying that are not your own? A partner's stress? A child's anxiety? A colleague's frustration? You don't need to do anything about it. Just for this moment, allow yourself to acknowledge it. See these emotions as clouds you have allowed into your own sky. Recognizing them is the first step to letting them pass, to rediscovering the clear blue of your own emotional state. This is not about building walls. It's about learning to have a gate that allows you to let in connection and empathy, but also allows you to gently usher out the emotional baggage of others that you were not meant to carry. We have explored the riverbed of biology and the water of psychology, but no river exists in a vacuum. It is shaped, channeled, and even polluted by the landscape it flows through. This is the world of culture and socialization, arguably the most powerful force in shaping our emotional expression. From the moment we are born, we are handed a rule book for emotions based on our gender. Think back to the playground. A little boy falls and scrapes his knee. He is often told, "Be a big boy, don't cry, shake it off." A little girl falls and scrapes her knee. She is often scooped up, comforted, and told, "It's okay to cry, let it all out." These small, seemingly innocuous interactions, repeated thousands of times, carve deep channels in our emotional river. Boys learn that their river is supposed to be contained, controlled, even frozen over. Girls learn that their river is expected to flow openly, to be a source of comfort and connection for others. This brings us to the concept of emotional display rules. These are the unspoken cultural agreements about which emotions are acceptable to show. In many cultures, women are given a much wider permission slip for expressing emotions like sadness, fear, and even ecstatic joy. Men, on the other hand, are often restricted to a much narrower band. Anger and pride are acceptable, but vulnerability is not. The brilliant researcher and author Brené Brown has dedicated her life's work to understanding vulnerability, courage, and shame. She teaches us that vulnerability is not weakness. It is the birthplace of courage and connection. Yet our society has effectively socialized half of its population to fear the very source of its own humanity. And for the other half, it has socialized them to not only be vulnerable, but to also manage the emotional comfort of everyone around them. This is the invisible, exhausting work known as emotional labor. It is the act of managing your own feelings in order to meet the expectations of a job or a social situation. It's the flight attendant smiling through turbulence, the nurse holding back her own grief to comfort a patient's family, the mother setting aside her exhaustion to soothe a crying child. While both men and women perform emotional labor, society disproportionately expects it and demands it from women. It's the extra shift that women are expected to work. At the office, a man can be seen as successful if he is competent. A woman often has to be competent and likable, nurturing, and sensitive to the team's morale. This relentless pressure to manage the emotional climate is like being tasked with controlling the weather over the river. It's an impossible and draining task that is rarely acknowledged or rewarded. And all of this is reinforced by the giant mirror that society holds up to us: the media. Advertisements, films, and social media constantly perpetuate the stereotype of the emotional woman, unstable, irrational, ruled by her feelings. And on the flip side, the stoic man, strong, silent, and emotionally distant. When you are bombarded with these images from birth, they become a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. This is the danger of stereotype threat, the fear of confirming a negative stereotype about one's own group. A woman in a boardroom might hold back a passionate, intuitive idea for fear of being labeled too emotional. A young girl might come to believe that her deep feelings are a flaw, not a feature. We begin to edit ourselves to fit the tiny, distorted reflection the world shows us, and in doing so, we dam up the most powerful, authentic currents of our own river. Finally, we must look to the deepest, most ancient currents of our river, the evolutionary pressures that may have shaped it over millennia. From an evolutionary psychology perspective, women's heightened emotional sensitivity and empathy are not an accident. They are a potential adaptation for the survival of our species. For most of human history, the primary caregivers of our utterly helpless infants were mothers. A caregiver who could intuitively sense her baby's needs, was that cry, hunger, pain, or fear, was more likely to have a thriving child who would pass on those very genes. Empathy wasn't just a nice feeling, it was a critical survival tool. This intuitive, empathic connection formed the bedrock of human attachment, a legacy that flows within the female river to this day. It is the tend and befriend response we spoke of earlier, an evolutionary inheritance that prioritizes community and connection as the ultimate safety net. It's the deep, instinctual knowledge that we are stronger together. So now, we stand at the mouth of the river, where it meets the vast ocean. We have journeyed through its biological riverbed, its psychological currents, its socially constructed banks, and its evolutionary origins. The question we began with was, why are women more emotional and easily influenced? And now we can see that the question itself was flawed. It was looking at the river and judging it for not being a barren desert. The real question is, what is the nature of this river, and what is its purpose? The sensitivity you feel is not a weakness, it is a form of perception. The influence you feel from others is not a lack of character. It is the mark of an empathic, interconnected being. The depth of your feeling is not a flaw. It is a source of profound wisdom, creativity, and connection. The great Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung spoke of the process of individuation, the journey of becoming your whole, authentic self. A crucial part of this journey is integrating the parts of yourself that you have been taught to reject. For many women, this means reclaiming the power and wisdom of their emotional river. The aha moment, the dawn, after the tempest, is this: You were never meant to stop the river. You were meant to learn its language. The goal is not to feel less. It is to understand more. The key wasn't something you had to find. It was the realization that you were always the river itself, not just the boat being tossed upon it. You are the calm pools and the raging rapids. You are the deep currents and the sunlit surface, all of it. So, what now? How do you walk back into your life, not as someone who is at the mercy of their emotions, but as a wise navigator of their own being? The first step is to change your relationship with your feelings. The next time a powerful wave of emotion rises, do not immediately label it bad or try to push it away. Instead, get curious, pause, breathe, and ask it, what are you here to tell me? Is that anxiety a message that a boundary has been crossed? Is that sadness a signal of an unmet need? Is that anger a sign that a core value has been violated? Your emotions are not random noise. They are data. They are a sophisticated guidance system. Learn to listen to it with respect, not with fear. Your journey from this moment forward is not about building higher dams. It is about becoming a more skillful sailor. It's about honoring the tides of your body, creating space for your feelings without letting them commandeer your ship, and learning to distinguish between your own weather and the storms you've absorbed from others. Next time someone tells you that you are too emotional, you can silently thank them for noticing your strength. You can smile and know that you are in touch with a part of the human experience that they may have been taught to fear. Your sensitivity is not a liability. It is your superpower. It is the source of your intuition, your compassion, your creativity, your ability to connect and to heal. Step out now, away from the riverbank of judgment and analysis. Walk into the light of this new understanding. Your work awaits. Your life awaits. And most importantly, you, in all your deep feeling, powerful, and beautiful complexity, await yourself.